Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I know we don't have tons of time, but I have many questions for all of you. Maybe I will start with you, Savanah. It's a very touching film that seems to have involved a lot of research and I think a lot of interviews with the women in similar situation. I was wondering what was your process in terms of deciding to work in a fiction-based as opposed to a documentary, and if that changed through the course of your idea from the beginning of making the film?
Yeah. So I initially wrote a fictional story, which was based off of my relationship to my own sister. And my sister was adopted when I was 16 years old, and so that was like a very important moment in my life. And then from there, I worked with my friend, and we made this documentary short. And in that process, that was a lot of research, and that was a lot of learning, but also just getting back to this place that I was at when I was 16 years old, and hearing from people in very similar situations. So it was very grounding for me. But I ultimately decided to come back to that fictional story because with documentary, sometimes, especially with subject matters like this, it feels uncomfortable to follow somebody through some of the worst times in their life, especially when it might have to impact whether or not they get to keep their children. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be part of that story for any individual. So for me, fictionalizing it made it maybe even more true in a way. Because I wouldn't have to hide certain things from the audience in order for me to feel okay about the film.
I mean, it feels very honest, and I'm glad you decided to fictionalize it, but it doesn't change any of the emotion we are getting through as audience member, and I think obviously also on your side of working on the film. One of the huge strengths of the film is the casting. I think we're very lucky to have Tia and Erika here. Tia is in so many frames of the film, nearly everyone. And it's probably something that you had to go through the casting to make sure you had someone you wanted to work around for this film. So can you talk about the research and your decision to cast, someone? It's your first feature film too, as well. So it's
Yeah. So we started kind of looking everywhere. We went from the people that were in the documentary to just people we were meeting on the streets to, experienced actors. And ultimately it came back to finding someone that felt very Bay. That was really important to me. And Tia is that. And someone that also has a connection to motherhood, an intimate connection to that. And Tia, and also can have an experience and performance in some way, because I think when someone is in every frame of a film, it's very nerve-wracking to put them in that situation because you're putting them out of their comfort zone. And so Tia was not only ready to do this, she had just become a mother a year prior, was still, breastfeeding, was also training to be a doula, but also was willing to push herself and put herself in uncomfortable circumstances. And I think that's very rare for non-actors, or at least who start out as a non-actor and then becomes an actor through the film.
So in a way, you did change Tia's trajectory. Even so, you mentioned you didn't want to get involved in a documentary and changing someone. You changed our trajectory.
Yeah, I think we both changed each other. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Tia, can you talk about, are you prepared to work on this role? And how was the process all along, since it was quite intense?
Yeah, it was intense. How did I prepare for it? I had a lot of time with Sav, and just hanging out and practicing and learning one another and asking each other hard questions, you know? Like, I remember just pulling up and just asking just random questions, like, what do you think about this? Or, you know, what do you think this experience would be like? So just a lot of experimental figuring things out together, and yeah, just not being afraid to try for something that I've never done before. She made me feel really safe and, you know, heard and seen. Tia, you know, so I was able to be seen even more as Gia when it was time. But yeah, we practice a lot.
I also would like to bring Erika into conversation, since you also have a very important role in terms of balancing the fragility and the strengths and the toughness that comes from Tia, and just making her evolve also. So I would like to hear from you about how you worked on the film in terms of working with Tia, and what was your experience like?
Yeah, I have no idea why they cast me. It's a horrible idea. Because I'm such a clown. And I thought, you're doomed, because she's some of the highest EQ you could ever have. Just full of emotion and wisdom, and very present and curious and intimate immediately. I thought, man, she's doomed. But no, I knew she'd be okay, because Savanah is the tie that binds. And you bond to her very quickly. She's a very serious young woman who laughs easily and is open to learning, which is really great, because the last thing you want to feel is, actually the truth is, at least for me at this time in my life, I want to amplify fear. If I don't understand it, I want to go toward it. And yet I need to mitigate it at some level, because I've been through some things, and there's no reason for me to have those fears. But you do, because, you know, the more you get into life, and if you're a veteran, you see all the things that you can't control. You may be frustrated with all things in your life, and you want to start to bring them into the same space, but you can't. And the young people and the new voices and new energy in this allowed me to play again, and that doesn't always happen. And so I really appreciate it. And I was the Dowager Duchess on set, frankly. I mean, I was like, you know, I dropped something and somebody said, I got it. Oh, Erika, good, great, thank you. So I didn't have to do much. But I'm really happy that I was there, because it reminded me why I love acting. I was discovered like Tia a very long time ago. And it was my first film, and somebody saw something in me and gave me an opportunity. So in a way, it was like life returning to me a gift, and I got to see it be given to several young women, and they embraced it. Not only, they knocked it out of the park.
A question I wanted to ask also, it's about the cinematography. You decided to shoot on print. I mean, I think it was shot on 16 millimeter, and it really also brings this really beautiful element that brings you in the film. And you work with Jody Lee Lipes, right? Mm-hmm. Correct. So can you talk about your decision to work on print, which is a little bit unusual for first film, or first feature film, and probably not the easiest things to do, but it really makes it so beautiful on the big screen as well. So can you talk about this?
Thank you. Yeah, so Jody is a really special person. Jody, our cinematographer, I had worked with on a couple other projects prior to this, and he was one of the only people I had worked with before this project, you know, so he was really like my right-hand support system, even beyond being a cinematographer on this movie. But I would say that the thing that was more difficult than maybe shooting on film is probably like the lack of coverage and just sticking to this language from start to finish. And you know, when you're doing your first film, it's really nice to have that right hand next to you that is not questioning that decision you made when you started at the very beginning. Like I was like, I really want to shoot on film, and I really want to have like, not much coverage, and be really considered with how we put that camera in the places that we put it, and hide the camera at times from them. And, at times during the shoot, you get really nervous, and so you're like, fuck, we should just get some coverage. And Jody is one of these people, and he's like, no, Savanah, like, let's keep pushing that agenda that you came in here with. And I think that was really enabling for me.
I saw you making movements, Erika.
Oh my God, I was terrified. I was like, where's that camera at? I don't think I've had my close-up. We're finished with the scene, you say. We're finished. And that camera's over there on my feet. Unreal. But I let it go. I have to say, I do really great feet and back acting. So but I knew that she was onto something. I just didn't understand it and didn't have to. And I bless you for it, because honestly, that kind of spare and very, efficient filmmaking tells story in a different way, and you are creating, the playing field and experimenting. And we need more of that for people to feel that they can experiment. And I'll start to get back facials because, so I can be ready for it.
When you saw the film, was there anything you didn't know was filmed? Were you surprised, either of you, when you first saw the film, about certain scenes or maybe expressions or moments where like, oh, that made it in? I didn't know we were shooting.
Definitely, I wasn't allowed to look at the monitor at all during filming. So anytime I get close, it would be like, Tia, like, get out the way. So all of it was a surprise for me, honestly. But I do recall, I think the scene where we're all eating together, she's like, they got the camera on Bokeem Woodbine's back right now. I was like, yeah, that is interesting, huh? Like, we love Bokeem Woodbine. So there's definitely a couple moments for us as well where you're like, oh man, I'm not even gonna ask her right now. But yeah, definitely.
I would love to talk to you so much more, but we have to wrap up because we have another screening after. You're showing the movie again tomorrow at MoMA, so there'll be a more extended Q&A, I think, hopefully, with... Maybe I'll come back to finish all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for being here tonight.